Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex zone. Neighborhood all in your eardrums. I ain't never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like I don't have no flaws. Snakes in the grass, cut those off. Your old squad shitty, my bros raw. No breaks, we go, 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 go. Throw shade, that's a no, 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 no. Go high, go low, low, low. Like spinning in a 644. Cash money like 504. Ball like AD24. No sleep, need more, more, more. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I'm a real one, my day ones. Try to speak up, can't say none. Try to dig dirt, there ain't none. I make the money that save up. 10 to 80, my save ones. Take to the top on the base one. New car, race on. Fast lane, pace on. With the booyah, that's a flex. Not human, I am from another planet. I'ma teleport my vanish. I'ma wake up, do damage. Join number 7.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to CCF. My name is Jonathan Cronenberg, covering the CSU Rams. Joining me is Tony Cosola, who covers the CU Buffs, as well as Rick Baum underneath, who covers the Air Force Falcons. Super fan as well. How are we doing, guys? How are we doing? Let's start with Rick. How was your football weekend?
Well, it was what it was. And I'll talk about it when we get to my stuff, but it was tough to be beat, by Army, and I honestly could say Army beat us twice. We did not travel well to Hawaii. We laid an egg, and we'll get into it a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, it was very shocking for me to see that, after Army have that go into Hawaii. I did not expect that at all. Tony, what about yourself? How were the Buffs for you, at least?
Well,
it was competitive.
It was a competitive game, and again, it's hard to lose sight, in the 3-0 start, but this is a much improved football team. But, you have a game where officially you never are behind for the full 60 minutes of the game. And you lose somehow, but it's painful. The team is learning how to win, but yeah, that one stung. That was one I thought they were going to get.
Yeah, those walk-off field goals kind of hit a few times this weekend. I saw a few games with it, and even in the NFL, we saw that. So, let's get started here and keep this game tight and start with the winners who won this weekend. Let's start with the CSU Rams. You guys ready?
John, let me ask you a question here.
Yeah, go for it.
Why the heck hasn't Justin Michael been playing in football games?
I have no idea, but what a breakout for him. I mean, literally, this was the first time we've seen the running game really start get going for the Rams. Obviously, we saw some good things with a few other guys, but again, they just were not getting anything really going. And then you have a running back come in and get 18 carries for 118 yards. That's just it was just amazing for them. And again, he had great burst. What I saw coming through the hole, he kind of was a little upright of a runner, I thought, but that's fine. He'll get that under controlled. But again, he wasn't even getting the ball very early in the game, I felt like, either. So he was featured a little bit more later once things started to get going, and they moved away from Van Shield. And I really thought that was amazing. Big breakout for him.
I think Van Shield has been a guy that's been playing pretty well this year. So, to see that not only you have a guy that's a little more of a power runner, but, you see Marshall listed at 5'11", 175. Looks like a guy that can maybe be a little lightning to the Thunder there.
Yeah, I definitely see that coming. And it's one of those things, again, that he just had some Adrian Peterson-like running style. I'm not saying he's Adrian Peterson, but there was something about his running style that I thought kind of gravitated towards that. And what's great for it, I think he's a true freshman, if I believe correctly. And so that means you have, many more years of him coming. And that's just been a gaping hole for this Rams team at this point. And you can see that it transformed into a win. which was great because BFN was not on his game. I'd say he struggled a little bit. He had some interceptions, but those were end of the first half kind of thing. But still, not having a high completion rate, so it was definitely a tough game for BFN.
Well, and not only that, I mean, you see in that fourth quarter, they're able to kind of withstand that comeback attempt as San Diego State put up 13 points in that fourth quarter to make it really, really close. I applaud him for being able to weather that storm.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he's won every single way that so far. He's won tough games. He's kind of won a blowout. He's done it a few different ways, so he's learning a lot. I'm very excited about that when it comes to that. And again, I don't hold any of the interceptions against him because they were kind of at the end of the half, just deep ball thrown into the end zone, and they ended up being interception. But again, San Diego State, a good running team. They were able to really kind of hold them off well. I know we're also watching Kamara very closely for our sack total. He did get a safety, actually. So he had one sack. It was, he would have had another sack, but they accepted a penalty. So, really still up there, still has a chance at that sack record. I think he should be at 13 or 14 now. But, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to what me and Tony have been watching. So in these three programs, you had CU that started off the blocks really fast, exceeded expectations early. You had Air Force that kind of built up this 8-game winning streak. And here in November football, when it really matters, and you would have, it blows my mind, right, Tony, that we're talking CSU. They've won the last two. They're primed for a bowl. And I mean, that culture up there has to say, okay, coach, we see what you've been talking about.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point because there has been some fans that have been kind of hard on Norvell. And I just don't see the reason why. I think they've grown every season he's been there. He's brought in great classes. He's brought in the great staff. So I think this definitely is a reason to calm down for everyone. And they see this program developing. You definitely see that in the pipeline. They're getting new players all the time. So I really like what's been able to be done. And one of those things is getting that offensive line corrected. Even though this offensive line is doing some really good things, I think they haven't allowed a sack. Or they allow a sack every 33.2 attempts. That's huge to have your quarterback feel comfortable in the backfield, and especially as a freshman for Nicolosi. So
exactly, and I mean, it's something that we kind of talked about, that it seems like the Rams are ticking off those boxes. They're ticking off okay, we finally beat Boise State. Okay, we finally beat a San Diego State team, that's been at the top of the conference. They are starting to check off all those boxes to be a competitive team within this conference.
Yeah, and we got Taylor Desch coming in here. Another step to bowl eligibility. 4-4 since the start. Starting 0-2, have to win against Nevada this weekend. And I think that this weekend against Nevada, they have a great chance, Taylor. Obviously, you kind of feel for them. They're at the bottom of the pack, literally, for the Wolf Pack. They're 10th ranked, right, or 10th seed in the Mountain West. They got their wins basically are versus San Diego State. They got that at tight game 6-0 and New Mexico. So I really don't see Nevada being a strong team to go against CSU. But Cooper Legis, I believe his name is, the quarterback for Nevada, has a lot of potential in terms of what he can do with the ball running as well as throwing. So he's definitely someone to watch and be concerned about.
Hey, John, I was, Cooper is with Utah State. They've had kind of a quarterback carousel over there. They had a former Buff for a while at their quarterback position. Now, isn't it nice to beat your old employer? What does that matchup look like for CSU this weekend?
Yeah, when I'm looking at this matchup for CSU, I think that they have to go into this game with the same mindset of what they did last week, essentially. Let's run the ball. They're getting those holes. Let's hit them hard. I think with Van Shield and Williams, you're good to go. So you'll get a little bit more coming from the running game, as well as I think you just want to be smart in terms of let's not have turnovers. Let's not hold on to the ball too long in terms of Fowler Nicolosi. So I think that's again, the same kind of plan, but you want to attack Nevada. I think very much so. I think again, this is an offensive line that has some issues. This is the time where Kamara, you want to see him go and attack. And so, what I know we're kind of short on time. I went very long with CSU in terms of the football team. Why don't we switch over to the basketball a little bit? Isaiah Stevens is, just beaten the record held by Ryan Yonders for 29 years in terms of assists for CSU. And I think that's huge, honestly. It's one of those things, again, it's a staple kind of thing that you didn't think anyone was going to beat that record. And Isaiah Stevens is the player running through CSU. That team really just goes through him, and it's been very impressive. I think they have a chance. He has a chance, obviously, to be drafted high, or relatively high. And it's for me, seeing this team, they're fast, very fast. The men's basketball team, they like to shoot hard. They're not, exactly hitting all their throws, but they are a team that's fast and is going to make their attempts. They just beat UNC after, taking a huge loss to them last year. Some of the players were obviously fired up and wanted to get back and beat that though, after, again, having those kind of losses.
Yeah. It's kind of almost following a similar trend that we talk about with the football team, where you see that, a lot of these teams or teams that you've lost to in the past, they're getting their revenge. So, the men's basketball team can pick up where they didn't last year and beat a team that they should, another in-state rival.
Yeah, I mean, they should have won that game, and they did win this game here. But, it's one of those things where, again, they missed some shots. They could have had more even. So you just want to keep improving every week. When it comes to the women's team, they're doing well. They're off to a 2-0 start. Their schedule starts going now. They have a game tonight, I believe, at 6:30. So, that's kind of when it comes to, CSU and their basketball teams, that's what I'm seeing right now. Yeah, and you guys ready to?
Well,
go ahead.
Hold on. Like, I know Taylor is watching, and maybe the stat man can help us out here. He was helping out with some stats last year. So I see a guy on the roster. I mean, not only is the connection there with Nate Clifford, who played for CU, up until this year in his career, I see a guy on the roster named Joel Scott, and he looks a lot like Josh Scott. Is that a brotherly connection there between CU and CSU?
I wouldn't know, honestly. So we'll see if Taylor has an answer for us.
We'll reach out to the fans, some CSU fans. It is. Okay, so I just saw Taylor. There we go.
Thank you, Taylor.
The stat man coming in hot. Yeah, so that's his little brother. I noticed that. That's awesome. We got another brotherly connection here.
All right, guys, I've taken enough of your time when it comes to the basketball team. Let's move on over to some CU thieves.
Man, what can you say about that game? I know I teased it in the opening, Rick, and it was super painful to lose a game in which you literally were tied or had to lead for the full 60 minutes because the winning kick went through as there's zeros on the clock. It's painful, man. I mean, they were right there, had the lead, were forcing stops. Some of those old warts popped up and that you couldn't stop the run game when you really needed to, but it was competitive. You can see this team is improving. They're learning how to win. But those kind of close losses are the next step. You talk about those progressions with teams, Rick, and I know, John, you've seen this too. 2015 team had this before we blew up in 2016. You have teams that lose big, then they lose small, then they win small, then they win big. I'm really hoping that this is going to be that lose small team that next year they start to pull out some of these close games. What do you guys think?
These kind of games are painful, but man, they're so necessary to changing the culture and to overcoming adversity. I'll tell you, I mean, me and John got to give it to you. The atmosphere this year it doesn't even resemble anything I've seen probably since the heyday of CU football, and it's been a pleasure. And no matter what happens the rest of the season, I want them to keep this script. I want these guys to continue to buy in. I mean, we're seeing some players recently that we haven't talked a lot about, guys that are playing extra snaps either on the offensive or defensive line. we're seeing some of these younger receivers get a couple balls. It's, you got to appreciate this change.
Yeah, I totally agree. You could see it, and where I was really impressed, for as much as I just talked about that the defense could not stop the run when they needed to, I was impressed with their pass defense. They were mixing up coverages, and a freshman quarterback that's averaged, I think, over 70% completion, he was missing targets, and I think that was a lot of mixing up coverages. John, maybe you could say if I'm wrong or something here, but I've seen Charles Kelly mixing up and really putting his players in the right position to get those kind of stops. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I think Kelly knows what he's doing in terms of getting these players ramped up. I think it took a little bit longer than probably everyone expected. But again, these players are all-world athletes when it comes to the cornerbacks. And I'm starting to see that progression, like you're saying. And that's huge for this team. Now, to also have multiple cornerbacks, it's huge for the depth as well they have.
Well, yeah, I mean, you speak to that they're building that depth. You have Cormani McLean gets his first career start. You see a guy like Jaden Milner-Jones, number 31 there, getting a lot of playing time in the backfield. And they were getting stops. They were forcing, was it Fatida, I think? I don't want to mispronounce his name there, but, you were seeing him being forced into rough throws. Again, those warts that are just popping up with this team, the penalties, the rushing yardage when you can't need it. A little bit more commitment to the run game from the offense, but still just not consistent enough. Better passing, blocking this week, but it's those little things you need to do to win a game.
Do you feel like?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you feel like Shermer has brought some stabilization to the offense yet? Do you think there's a better, in terms of play calling, is there a better, they're getting the run game going a little bit? Do you like that, or did you think it was kind of a moot point with Lewis and him?
I think he actually called a pretty good game last week. We saw some different concepts and maybe pushing the ball a little bit more downfield. I thought the pass protection was better, and I think that was due more to a schematic change in that you saw an extra lineman being used as a tight end for a lot, which I do like. Way to just get a little more protection. It resulted in, 3 sacks is still not good, but it's better than the 7 sacks that they had a couple weeks ago that they allowed. So I think those small little schematic changes are making a huge impact. I just want to see it continue. I want to see them improve. I want to see the line get better and continue to advance forward.
Yeah, I agree. What kind of special test does a Washington State team on a Friday night? Is there a chance to maybe pick one up that some people aren't expecting?
I think I've been the guy that's called for wins the last 2 weeks. So, I'm going to be a little jaded with my opinion here, but you see a game where all of a sudden a team that was ranked earlier in the season has lost, I think, 6 straight. And CU's only a 5.5-point dog, which in college football, a 1-score dog, that's a pretty close game. So I think there's a chance there. You see a team that's reeling. Yeah, obviously CU has lost 4 straight, but this Washington State team is in a rut right now. And it could just be one of the things where we're catching them at the right time, Rick. So I know football's big, but we have got to spend some time talking about these basketball teams because they are on an absolute tear right now.
Well, hold on a second.
I
want to say something here, and it is basketball related, so we're not going to go back and forth. But good Lord, if anybody watched our episode last week and saw the kind of guests we had on, and I'm still a little smitten. We had our gal who starred in Las Vegas, who stars for this team, and we got to see the Kosolo, the elder statesman, the Jedi warrior. It was probably one of my favorite shows that we've done. Now we're in double digits, right, guys?
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It was a great show, and we, just to let the viewers get a little peek behind the curtain, we were so amazed that we were able to cram in 2 guests and talk all the different sports with you guys, and we just hope to continue that level from here on out because it was a blast. So thank you again to Frida. Thank you again to Papa Casolo. But transitioning into basketball, boys, we have a top 10 team in our state when it comes to women's basketball. That's right, fans. If you have not heard, I'm sorry, John, don't mean to interrupt you, but if you have not heard, CU has flown up the rankings. So for the first time in changing the rankings this year, they are number 5. They are the 5th best team in the country. They're competing for a title this year, John. I said that at the beginning. They're competing. What do you think?
I mean, you said it before the season even really started. You said this team was a contender. Now, I didn't see it coming to fruition versus LSU immediately, but I mean, I've been stunned by this team. Honestly, they are packing the house for the women's, which has been nice to see. Travis Hunter's going to the games. It's just nice to see everyone get there and it get really big at the event center. And that's the same for the men's team, which is doing very well. So both teams are doing well for CU, and it's just been so impressive on how they've been able to recruit on both ends. With, Payne Jr. has just been a blessing, I think. So, do you have any thoughts on what she's been able to do for this team?
Oh, it's amazing. So, I've talked about it with Frida, personally, because Frida was a freshman, I believe, or very young, when Coach Payne came in, and they've gone from a team that was below 500 to, I think we can call them a legit national title contender in her years since being a coach. I think all credit in the world should go to Coach Payne right now, because she's not only continuing to build this program up, but she's getting the right pieces. She picked up 2 really good transfer impact players in Sarah Rose Smith and Maddie Nolan, and she's still plucking 4 stars out of the air. It's been incredible to watch her build up this program and continue to build it up for future success.
Now, Tony, do you think where we are as a conference in the Pac-12 and some of the rebuilding that's going on with these programs, do you think it's all about timing, and this might be the perfect time to put something together conference-wise, and then of course everything is open as far as with tournament time?
It could be, Rick, what's going to be really interesting to see is, one thing that I noted with some of the guys that I write with at Buffalo's Wire, some of the other Pac-12 writers, is yes, you see CU at number 5 when it comes to women's basketball, but 3 through 6, and then I believe 10 and 25 are all Pac-12 teams. So they are a dominant conference when it comes to. And last check, I don't think any team in the conference has actually lost a game yet. I know in the women's team, I think they started 28-0. I'm getting the thumbs up, so I think we're still good there. But, this is a dominant conference. So once we get into tournament play, or conference play, I think it's going to be a bloodbath. Now, I just want to give a little bit of time to talk about our men's team as well, because they've made a debut in the rankings. After starting the season unranked, they are now 25th. And what I love to see about this team, John, I'm not sure if you caught the game last night, but they scored 106 points against Milwaukee. And when it was, I believe, a 33-point lead, Tad Boyle was still throwing his clipboard around. So he was still frustrated and wanted his team to play. Is that not classic Tad Boyle?
That really is. That's one of the reasons why he's been a strong position there. It's one of those things where I just love to see it. That's why he coaches the young men for United States basketball as well, because he keeps them going. It's nonstop. If you stop doing it at the end of a game, maybe next game you'll do it at the start. So that makes a lot of sense to me why he's still pushing those guys that late.
Yeah, I love it. And then I tweeted this out. We're just going to show a quick highlight. But man, Rick, this is what a 5-star basketball player looks like. So I'm going to add my screen to the stage here. So let me know if you guys can see this.
We can see it.
Yeah, this is what a 5-star basketball player looks like. What a crazy dunk. He had a slow start to his basketball career, only scoring 4 points. But man, welcome to the stage, Cody Williams. This is going to be a fun year, Rick. It's going to be awesome to watch with those 2 basketball teams.
Man, it looks good. I of course don't have similar success, with Air Force, but we're building a program there. And you had mentioned about Coach Boyle. I remember going up to UNC and watching them play, and I was in the vicinity of a clipboard one time, of a wet towel another time. This is an emotional man. He wears it on his sleeve, and man, he can get something out of these young men that not everybody can.
Yeah, he's an intense guy to be in a press conference with, and I'm saying that as a good thing as a coach. But when you talk to him, man, he is locked in on you, and it could be a little intimidating the first time you interview him, but you get used to it. So it's cool to see.
I'll tell you something me and John would be interested in if they do a CU coaching symposium or forum to get those personalities that you've been describing during these episodes. The women's coach, Coach Boyle, Coach Sanders, that's what coaching is all about. It's that back and forth, right? Man, what a great environment that they're producing up there.
It's a fun group of personalities and people to be around. I've had all the admiration for all of them and thank them for all the time that I've been able to spend with all of them.
And it feels like they're feeding off each other, honestly, now. I mean, when one does well, it helps the other do well. It just is a nice kind of balance going on in terms of, hey, these games are happening and who's viewing them and making sure that it's going out right. So I really like that as well, that it feels like kind of, just kind of like this nice trinity going on.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. I think it was after the Oregon State game, or definitely after the LSU game. The first thing that Coach Sanders did in his press conference was to congratulate the women's team on upsetting LSU. So it's just cool to see. Rick, we talked about that the basketball hasn't had the success, but let's talk a little bit of Air Force. Let's see what's going on down south.
Sounds good. As I'm waiting for you to All right. Well, so, by the way, guys, we're doing great on time today, which will work out fine because we're going to talk about some D2 playoffs today as well. And, we got to do this. Me and Tony have been on the short end of the winning stick the last couple of weeks. Initially was unfamiliar with me. Unfortunately, it's starting to become more familiar, and I do not like it. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I mentioned at the top of the show, I feel like the Army loss has cost us 2 games. Let's hope it doesn't cost us 3. There's a lot of things going on. As far as the Hawaii game went, typical Hawaii stuff, right? Talking to the guys that week, that was the only game I've missed in a while, and specifically this year. And they were enjoying themselves, and they were loving the scenery, and they were having a good time, and they looked carefree. That feeling subsided around game time. If you were sentenced to watch the game on your handheld device, like I was, it was not fun. I did have to make a repair at some point because I threw my phone a couple times. So, here we are, right? Senior week.
Well, I'm glad you had some emotions going there, but how big is your screen? Let's just know that. I just want to know. That's hard to watch for a while, and especially not being happy, man. And let's talk about a little bit on Air Force. What do you think can get them to turn around and get things going for them? Because there's no reason to think too much of the negativity. I think because you have to get going right away.
Well, what can turn them around would be a healthy team moving forward and crushing senior week. That would help them move along. Here's what we're in the middle of. We have probably the least healthy team of the season. We're going up on game 11. We are decimated by injuries. I'm not going to get into any real specifics, but I'll tell you what I think might happen. Also, we've got some things going on. We haven't been home in a month. I'm curious to see what the stadium construction looks like. And honestly, we're a little bit tired of losing.
Well, you mentioned those injury issues. Is that something that comes out of the style of play that Air Force deals with? Because I know there's those stats where there's only a certain number of quarterbacks that have started every game in a season. Is that something that we can chalk up to the style of play that Air Force plays, or is that just kind of a random occurrence that's affected this team this year?
No, nothing random about it. When we did our season preview, I mentioned to that fact that whoever your 2s or 3s are in this style of offense, they will get an opportunity. And, fortunately, we have that depth. You might not have seen as a crisp a game from Jensen Jones against Hawaii, had some big plays, had 2 touchdowns dropped. I mean, literally sitting in somebody's hand and they were dropped. He also and talking to Jensen about it, there, some of the O-line reads, there was some opportunities where free rushers came in and one in particular blew him up, and next thing you know, they're going the other way for 6. So this is one of those things. This is gut check time. This senior class has been amazing. 31-11, over their time. Huge wins. CU, Baylor, Louisville. I mean, this is the defining moment of this class. Now, I wish I had everybody available, and I'm sure they do as well. But I'm telling you, it's gut check time down at USAFA.
I think they're definitely the team that can come back from this. You talk about gut check time. I think this is the team that can absorb those blows and continue to move forward. But I think a big way to start with that is the turnovers. What's been going on, Rick? That just, a team that is known for being very safe with the ball and controlling possession. I mean, the turnovers just been crazy the last couple of weeks. What do you see from that, and what's been going on there with that turnover battle?
Well, that's a two-part story, right? So, and early in games, the turnovers are necessitated by good play by the opposition, or poor play by us, right? Not holding on to the ball, not securing, making poor reads on throws, etc. Now, the turnovers later in the game, and they've also been plenty, have been about us doing the one thing that this offense isn't designed to do, and that's play from behind, especially in double digits. So you got that back and forth there. I mean, really, you saw for a little bit against Hawaii what we need this Saturday. We saw a 20-play drive, and unfortunately didn't result in a touchdown, resulted in points. This is what we need going forward.
That's awesome. And was that the one that took 11 minutes?
Yeah. I don't know the entire quarter.
That's insane. That's just classic Air Force football. I saw that 11-minute drive, I think, right before I went to bed, and I was like, oh, okay, they're getting the hang of this. But yeah, I love those kind of drives from Air Force. I want to see a lot more of that, and I think we will. We will on Saturday.
Definitely. Any questions, John?
Like you're saying, those long sustained drives are really key for Air Force to get going again. For me, talking about the injuries, it is very concerning, especially with some of those guys being, your seniors, your leaders. But at the end of the day, like you said, there's that depth. Is there anyone you kind of expect to maybe pop out that hasn't been a known name in this kind of end of the stretch?
Well, coincidentally, with all these injuries, you've seen a little bit and you're going to see a little bit more. So I would expect, and of course, none of this is ever confirmed, I would expect Jensen Jones to make his first collegiate start on Saturday. The senior, he's a fifth-year guy, which, a lot of people are like, what do you mean, fifth year at the academy? Well, we do have the prep school. That's kind of our opportunity for the kids to work on their grades and on their military lives. And then they go into the 4-year agreement. So Jensen Jones is somebody that I think you're going to like. When he knows he's the man, it's a little bit different. And like I said, he had some good plays on Saturday. Dylan Carson, who is a sophomore fullback, wears a very familiar number, like we've discussed on this program, number 20. He is a slasher. Owen Burke, a definite money guy. You'll see him. Cade Harris. Cade was a kid that flashed at the middle of the year, flashed a little bit at the beginning of the year, and had a huge catch, 69 yards against Hawaii on Saturday. Those are guys that you may not be too familiar with, that you're going to see a little bit more of and in a little different light. Another guy, Kapono Blake. He's stepped in for Jaden Thurgood on the line. He's a native from Hawaii. He got to play at home last week, albeit in a loss. So there's a lot of things going on and a lot of opportunities, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and speaking kind of to go on and kind of transition here, can we talk a little bit about what's going to happen for the Air Force basketball team? Just do a little transition into that. I'm
going to decline that. I want to jump right into the UNLV preview.
Okay, yes, of course.
And then I'll get right into that, and it's real brief, and here's what it is. So the difference between beating UNLV on senior day, and I get used to saying senior night, but it's actually at 1:30 p.m., and not beating UNLV on senior day is and this is hard to say, but we're talking the difference is most likely your bowl opportunities become, if you win, your LA Bowl is on the table still. Your Armed Forces Bowl, if you win one of the next two, is probably on the table. If you lose, however, you are spending your December in these states. Arizona, which is fine, Arizona Bowl, Boise, Idaho, which I've been to the Potato Bowl in December, no. And Albuquerque for the New Mexico Bowl. That's kind of what you're looking at. So is this a big game for Air Force? Absolutely the biggest game I can remember in a while. So that's where you're at. UNLV is not a traditional altitude-friendly program. What I mean is, in the last 2 decades, they have 11 wins and 40 losses at altitude, right? Their roster is 92% guys who are at sea level, all right, or lower altitude. This is an opportunity for Air Force to do what we've been hoping for them to do. Now basketball. So, as I had mentioned before, when we're talking about Air Force basketball in particular, we've got some challenges with recruiting recently. We've got a lot of guys that come and have good freshman and sophomore years. Well, that's when they have to make their decision if they're going to stick around or not. And lately, not a lot of them have. The men have a back-to-back coming up. They play tomorrow, which I am a guest, and I will be in attendance. We're playing Lindenwood. This is our non-conference schedule, of course. Then the following day, good friends of ours, Bill and Mary, or William and Mary, we have them both those days. So you guys have any question about men's basketball?
We talked about it a little bit. It's a team that's undersized. What do they need to do to win and be competitive against teams? Because I know one of my favorite teams that I watched was the Air Force team that went up against UNC in March Madness. When I was in I believe it's my high school years. That was a team that was, yes, undersized, but they could shoot the lights out. So what does this Air Force team rely on in order to win games?
Well, that same recipe, crazy enough, you're talking from 20 years ago, but yeah, we've got that coach back, right? We've had him back now. I think this is his 3rd season, Joe Scott. They run that Princeton square/triangle offense, right? So they'll pull you out and then they'll cut you in, which is good for a shooting team. We don't have a lot of size in the middle, but we do move the ball out. Ethan Taylor's been exquisite at guard. We're glad that he has stuck around. And then the rest, it's a bunch of younger guys that are getting into this offense. Now we've got an opportunity coming up to really assert ourselves on this non-conference schedule. Then, of course, conference play begins.
Awesome. And then, when it comes to the women's side, I kind of see there's two teams that they've won in-state rivals against and then had a rough game in that third one. Are they relying kind of on the same offense? Do they have the same kind of setup, or do they do different things over on that side of the house?
Well, they do things a little different. Chris Gobrick, our coach, she's amazing. I've had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Chris. Those girls are as lunch pail and gritty, and I mean they will hustle. This team, and we had our best year last year. This team just continues to get better. Last night we had a tight game against Regis. We beat them by 10. To start off the season, Tony had mentioned we played University of Denver. That game went down to the wire. We won it by a couple points. Struggled on the road, and the thing about these girls, they're fun to watch. Honestly, if I have an opportunity recently to watch one of the programs, I like to watch the girls. They need the support, and they're both a work in progress.
And then one thing I really want to know, Rick, what are you doing on December 2nd? Because I see that my CU women's team is coming down to play your Air Force Falcons in basketball. You want to make a little date there? Maybe a little bit bet date?
Well, let's see. Here's what I hope I'm doing on December 2nd. So if the Air Force Falcons run the table, that should be around the time of the conference championship. So it could be a plethora of sports spectacular of epic proportion. So let's hope Air Force is hosting the championship game. Let's hope I'm in town. And yeah, absolutely, we'll do it all, because that game is an afternoon game. We could transition to the beat. I mean, I was going to say the beatdown. The game against Air Force. I think it'll be fun.
That sounds great.
And here I am on the side. We'll have our little bet for when it's CSU versus Air Force too. I mean, they're in conference, so we'll see that one too. So we'll definitely have some good gentlemen's bets going on there.
Yeah, definitely. Now you guys, we have of course, the ability to ad lib here. Do you want to go ahead, since we've been going back and forth, and cap off our football teams with our predictions, and then we could talk about some other things going on in state?
That'd be great. Sounds good to me.
All right, we'll start with Tony, and we'll kind of work the wheel to me.
Let's do it. Oh, there.
We are talking about Buffs and Wazoo. So what I see here, I mentioned earlier, it's a 5.5-point spread. Wazoo is the favorite. They're kind of getting that home bump. In pro football, the rule is always kind of around 3 points. And I think in college football, it's usually more around 4 to 5. So, I really see this being a close matchup. Again, I'm going to call for the upset. I'm going to call for CU to finally get that elusive 5th win that's been eluding them, and maybe they could pull 2 out to be bowl eligible. But I will go with this being a high-scoring game. But I will go CU winning 38-34.
Yeah, after personally seeing them go against Washington State versus CSU, I thought they were a very good team, very polished from what I saw. Very dangerous for breaking down plays when they're broken down. But I think Colorado does a good job at defending those plays as well. So for me, I think this is going to be a tight, high-scoring game. Similarly, I'm going to go with 31. I'm going to go 34 for Washington State, 31 for CU. Close one, but no cigar. What about you, Rick?
Yeah, unfortunately, this team seems like they're destined to have these close games, and they're so entertaining and so heartbreaking. I'm going to stick with that theme. I'm going to go 27-24 Wazoo. And I really, man, next year's going to be so cool, but we got to still pull some positive things out of this year.
Most definitely. And going in for CSU versus Nevada, I think that's a game for CSU to kind of show what they've been doing in terms of development. I really think that they're going to have a show kind of for this game. So for me personally, I have it going as a high scoring one still, but it's going to be 28. Actually, it's going to be low for Nevada, 28 for the Rams, and I'll go with 10 for Nevada. What about you, Rick?
I like that theme. I'm going to go 31-13 CSU. I think this is an opportunity, for guys to get some stats to pad up their opportunities for all conference teams. I really believe, and they won't talk about it very much, but I think this is a kind of a payback for Matt Mummy and for Coach Norvell. I think they're going to go in and say, hey, remember us.
Yeah, I kind of like those scores. I'm going to go with 31-17 Rams. I think this is a game where Nevada is just outclassed by the talent that CSU has. It's been cool to watch Brandon Lewis get some run with Nevada, but I think you see the deficiencies of the roster, and he doesn't have a lot of help. And, he's the guy that relies on his legs. And when they're behind and he's forced to throw, he can make mistakes. So I think the Rams win this one pretty easily. Lastly, Rick, let's what do you got for us with the game of the year here for Air Force?
Well, I predicted them every game, right? I'm 8-2. The team is also 8-2. So I'm thinking 24-22, probably a late field goal. But most importantly, I think we're going to see less turnovers. I think we're going to see more proficient drives. And some of the people that we outlined earlier, I think are going to play big roles, and you add on these seniors, Trey Taylor, Alec Mock, Bo Richter. These kids are going to say, hey, remember us. I really believe we're going to have a big defensive player too. And you can't lose on senior day.
I like that a lot, Rick. I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think they're going to get on track, mostly because I don't see an 18.5-point spread, which is, I guess, just the curse knell this year. But I will go with Air Force in a close one, 24-20, and they make a defensive play to seal the game.
Yeah, I think Air Force gets this right. I think they get back on track. I've picked them every single game this season, and I'm not changing. So I think that they're able to pull this one out. Again, in the similar kind of style that you guys have been talking about. Let's go with the Falcons with 24 and UNLV with 17. Hard-fought game.
Yeah, definitely a hard-fought game. And that kind of wraps us up on our teams that we do for D1 football. Man, Tony, tell us what's going on in Division II football, and most importantly, in Gunnison, Colorado, or down the street from me and you in Golden.
Yeah, we have two teams that are gearing up for Division II playoffs. We had selection, I think it was Saturday or Sunday last week. And we have the bracket set up. So we're going to be having some D2 playoffs. And we have two teams that have a shot at the national title. One team that's been dominant all year, the number one team in the country, Colorado School of Mines, gets a bye week after their dominant run, especially in conference, where I think I saw they outscored their conference teams like 500 and something to 70 in their conference games. This team is outrageously good.
Is that good? Is that dominant?
What does high score mean? Did I break it? And then beyond that, we have our Western Colorado University getting ready to gear up to play. I think it's Central Washington this week. And that's a team that's 10-1 with their only blemish being to those ore diggers in Golden. They did lose to them 42-7. But other than that, man, they've run the table. I think it's going to be a fun week of football. I can't wait to see what happens. What do you think, John?
Yeah, those it's going to be fun. I like those Division II playoff matchups. Honestly, it's just those. It feels like they're doing it for the love of football, not so much as just doing it to get further to the next stage. I really like that. It feels like a true passionate game, and for me, these are just stuff I love to see. And I do believe the Mines has always been so dominant. Like you said, that those point differentials are crazy. So, for me, I'm very excited to get it, be able to see this and see it come to fruition. What about you, Rick?
Well, when we're talking those video game numbers and all that stuff, I mean, what comes next? Well, in this case, what came next for the School of Mines is records, right? So their quarterback, John, I think it's Matata, I believe he broke, and this is non-divisional. He broke the entire NCAA in passing touchdowns, I believe, and he's top 3 in yards, and he is probably one of the best D2 prospects to come out in a while. And you see guys from lower divisions in the NFL now. If you watch the Chicago Bears, or if you watch some of these other programs, a quarterback's a quarterback, and if you have talent, you might play on Sunday.
Most definitely. And we have Tony just kind of had to go in the background, these technical issues on these streaming services. So we're kind of hitting a good point here. Anything else that you think that we can talk about as we get kind of heading out?
John, and I was going to invite Tony to this, and if he pops in, we'll ask him. This time of year with a couple games left in the regular season and stuff, I just, if there's anything that you're thinking of, as far as an Air Force for me and
just tell me when. Just tell me when.
Okay, so I'd like you to just a quick story on what this CSU event's like, an interaction, something. I know you do a lot of recruiting, so just a quickie on your CSU experience with 2 games left in the regular season.
It's been really fun. I mean, it's been something where it's been kind of a roller coaster, being the first time really in depth covering CSU. I've been more on the CU side, but it's one of those things where we've had some great guests I've spoken to, also kind of preemptive to this podcast. So seeing Bill Best get some success has been huge. Seeing what he's been able to recruit as well. The pipeline for CSU is going to be exciting. I think this team is going to be getting themselves into, set up for the future in the next 2-3 years to be a dominant team in the Mountain West, or wherever they end up, if, the Mountain West is even existing at that time. So that's been, one thing for me that's been very enjoyable for this CSU season. I have to admit, I was a little surprised with the fans this year, throwing stuff on the field and getting a flag again, or a warning on this game as well. So it's been one of those things where I'm very confused with the fandom in some sense, where just calm down. It's going to be good next year. Just calm down one more year. So it's been very fun though. And there's been players that have been exciting to, speak with and just kind of see them develop, honestly.
Definitely. So you missed it, Tony. We're doing a quick story. We got about 5 minutes to fill. John was talking about one of his memorable parts of this past season with a couple games to go. What's an interaction? What's something, an experience you had? I know Vegas is probably in there too. Something about this season so far that you've really highlighted.
Well, honestly, I'll give you 2, because I have a cool little story that I shared with you guys, and hopefully something that we can put together for the channel here. But I played in a charity poker tournament last weekend, and I actually got to sit next to one of the players of the School of Mines or Diggers. He's a tight end named Jack Walters, and we're trying to set up something fun for you guys. So maybe we'll be able to get a little preview from the mouths of the players themselves. But other than that, Rick, honestly, I have to say the experience that you gave me down at the Air Force Academy, that was absolutely awesome. And getting to see all those fans come up and recognize me and be like, I'd introduce myself. I say, hey, I'm Tony. And they're like, oh, yeah, we know. And I'm like, whoa, that's kind of weird. So it's been memorable. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I have to admit, again, one of the big things for me was going to some practices with you, Rick, just being that close to some of those guys and getting to interact with them. That was huge. It just, one of those things that meant a lot in kind of those were some hard days for me. So being able to see the Air Force players, meet them, interact with them was huge also.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, I'm going to extend the invitation to this Saturday, and then hopefully one other game, either one. and even into next season, we'll get you guys there again. One of my memories so far that I've enjoyed on this podcast has been the interaction with the three of us, how the show must go on in certain cases with either me being sick, John being sick, or other things going on. And one of the coolest parts about doing this is those interactions, right? We had Frida on last week. I'm smitten. That girl has just a presence. She's an athlete, but she's just a sweetheart. I will so far remember that as one of my highlights. And, that the last thing I'm going to leave you with is just something that I get to see, kind of that winding road. So as you guys know, I mentor, a couple dozen of the Air Force cadet football players, and this is senior week. And for me, I understand that a lot of these guys, and I'm talking 11 graduate next month. These are the half season turnback guys that I've gotten really close to. And if I think of one moment, one defining moment of that class, it has to go with Trey Taylor, right? Trey, after the Frozen Bowl game, Armed Forces Bowl in Texas, -7 wind chill, and beating Baylor, and getting a call from Trey and saying, "Hey, are you close to the team hotel?" "Well, yes." "Well, could you come get me?" "Aren't you going to celebrate with your teammates?" "Absolutely not. The next season starts at 12:01. This is everything that I've ever been a part of with Air Force athletics. This, for me, is a key picture of a key special athlete, a young man that will be defending our nation, and a group of amazing men who have blessed my life. So that's my story.
That is as emotional as I can think. I really do appreciate you sharing with us with that. Anything else you guys have? Otherwise, we'll get out of here.
No, man. Great job, guys. And hey, let's do something we haven't done in a while. Let's all get some victories this week.
Let's do it. I think I know 2 out of 3. We're looking at you. See you. All right, guys. Thank you so much for everything. Be well. Take care. And have a good one.